This video is part 2 in the series, How to Catch Up Your Struggling Student. In part 1, we talked about language arts when it came to reading, writing, and in this video, we're going to talk about arithmetic, how to catch them up if they are behind. And I say it in quotations because really every child is just going at their own pace, and usually the problem is very basic, very fundamental, and I'm going to give you 3 points, 3 ways to help them, as well as what could be the problem, what to look out for, and how you can fix that to give them the best foundation going a little bit further than just the academic scope. It's really important, so let's get started. Now, I am a homeschooling mom of 6, and I feel like I have a pretty good wide range here when it comes to the spectrum. I have a child who almost just sort of effortlessly, picked up reading. She doesn't get any errors on her Saxon math lessons. I'm amazed by it. Everything just kind of comes easy and natural to her. And then I have all the way to the other side of the spectrum where I have a son with an IEP and who has all kinds of labels and diagnosis, things like that. So I know the pain, okay, the frustration that you might be going through, where maybe you're using the same methods that worked for one child and they did really great with it, and it just doesn't seem to be working the same with other children. And I think a lot of parents at this point think I have to do something different for each child then. I have to cater to their learning style. And I just want to say, no, that's not the answer. They just need more time. That's it. They just need to focus on some of the other things that I'm going to talk to you about here as to how to improve their memory, how to improve their concentration, their study habits, instead of just switching to different curriculums. It is still about the basics. They're just going to take a little bit more time learning the basics. I can here, let me go on a little rant for a couple of minutes, how this has really hit me lately in a total different area of life. And I keep seeing it how in all areas of life, if there's a struggle, it's usually because you don't have your basics covered. So for example, recently I took a course on style. And maybe you know who she is here on YouTube. She's really big, is Dearly Bethany. Now her style is not the same as my style, but her course was fantastic. Looking at her channel, looking at her style, you would think, wow, she has a lot going on, her style is very unique. And so you might think it's about those pieces, those flamboyant things, or mixing and matching and all these different elements. But what her course really focused on was the basics. She even took us on this exercise looking at paintings from artists that were unfinished and looking to see how their artwork started. And it was with a very basic color scheme with the neutrals. And then later they add in all the other colors. So what we did and throughout her course was first focus on the basics. She actually recommended that we take out everything in our closets that were not neutrals and that had patterns on them. And then after we sort of just settled with that for a while, then it was okay to go ahead and go back and look through all those colored pieces and ask yourself, do I really want to wear this? Does it really go with my style now, with my closet? And that's fine if you do, you are intentional about what you're selecting to put back into your closet. But a lot of people just thought, I'm really fine with the basics. And in fact, that gives me more freedom to create outfits so that I always have something to wear. Because here's the bottom line. If you feel like you have nothing to wear, Busby style, she talks a lot about this as well, is because you don't have the basics, right? You need the basics. So it might not be very fun and exciting to shop for a blouse like this, a plain colored blouse, or a camisole, the tank tops, right? It might not be very exciting to shop for those pieces, but you need that versus the patterns and the trends and the cold shoulders or whatever. Then you have a closet full of that with nothing to wear. It was a great aha moment, just a great course in realizing that about the basics, because you could really see this applied to homeschooling. I think a lot of parents want to focus on the shiny, the trendy, the new, what looks good, and you think, I'm going to adopt that and it's going to be great. But then you're homeschooling and you're seeing problems. Why? It's because you don't have the basics. And if you just go back to the basics, like reading, writing, and arithmetic, after you do that for a while and you see how good that feels and the progress that's being made, then you think to yourself, do I really want to add all this other stuff? That's what happens. And that's why a lot of parents that try RC and they do this and they see the results, they're like, yeah, I'm not even tempted to go with any other curriculum, to go to homeschool fairs, to shop around. They stick with the basics. So I just thought that was such an aha moment in any area of life, really. If there's an issue, you got to think about the basics, whether it's exercise or nutrition or whatever it may be, any kind of business thing. It will always come back to the basics. So here we go. This is what we're talking about when catching up a child who is behind. Now, before we can dive into the strategies as to how to bring the child up to speed, we have to talk about the 3 possible reasons why they are that way. And that's physical, mental, and local. So with local, that means the environment. Take a look around your home. Are there things that could be a hindrance? Maybe you allow a lot of screen time. And so what's the competition like there when it comes to school and screens? Maybe there isn't a quiet moment throughout the day, or they're not home much. So that's the local part of it. Now, the physical part, that could be several things. That could be adenoids, defective eyesight and hearing, anemia, malnutrition, and things like that. So obviously you need a very watchful mother to bring this to the attention of a physician and get that in order. So that is a reason why they could be behind. But the one in the middle here, mental, I think that's probably the most common, and that is usually lack of self-control, lack of memory, an abnormally slow process of mind maturing, complete absorption in some line of thought entirely outside of the school curriculum. So the principal aim here is developing self-control. And this is one of the reasons why I love the Robinson curriculum. Many parents do, because it's not just about academics, although that there is a high standard there. It teaches them study habits that will really carry them through life. It's about self-control. That's the principal aim. And when this is achieved, that's really the triumph of education. So it includes the habits of regular, patient, persevering work and concentration at will. You have to understand that the immature mind cannot hold itself to a thought for more than a few minutes. This is a very, childish thing where they get easily distracted. And if this is not addressed as they're growing up, making that transition into adulthood, then you will see adults who still have trouble focusing on it. They have very short attention spans. They don't like to read books. So this is where that happens. Usually it's in the first maybe 3 academic years where a lot of the bad habits can really set them up for big challenges later on in life. So this part is really critical. Keep in mind that when a student is having a hard time when it comes to math, it's one of 3 things: computational, careless, conceptual. Careless is the easiest one. They're not lining things up correctly, things like that. Maybe some graph paper might help. Number 2, though, computational. That's when they don't have the basics. They don't have their math facts memorized. And yes, they should go back. It won't take long, but they need to go back and memorize their math facts. Now, the Robinson curriculum has a recommendation to just give them all of the flashcards in little chunks at a time, but building upon that, increasingly in difficulty, they get more and more added to the pile, and they drill these every single day. I will leave a video down below where I show you exactly that process step by step. Some parents, I realize, this is not cutting it. This is not enough, just mixing them all up in little chunks and doing that. So here is Ella Francis Lynch, her way of doing it. So all it requires is an abacus, or you can use a counter, beans, coins, whatever you want to use. And you're going to start very simply with just counting by 2s. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Now the first day, it might just be up to 6, up to 8. It depends on the child. All you need is just a notebook 15 cents from Walmart. And every day you're gonna have them write their name and the date and then the exercise. So this would be counting by twos. And then you're gonna have 3 attempts, first, second, and third attempt, and you're going to time them. Because timing does put that pressure on them and they will wanna beat their time. It will be a game for them and they will see and gain confidence as their time does get shorter and shorter. If they're just really adverse to timing, you just have to talk to them about what is the story that they're telling themselves in their head, break it down, explain exactly what the goal is, how this is going to help them, then they won't be so adverse to it, and just make it fun. So counting by twos, 2, 4, 6, 8, and then first attempt, how long it took, second attempt, how long it took, third attempt. Then you're gonna keep going. Maybe it might take a few days, a week or two, but you're gonna keep counting all the way to 20, 24, all the way to 100. Counting by twos all the way to 100, and then you're gonna work on counting backwards, counting by twos from 100 all the way to 2. Now, after that has been completely mastered, again, it's so important, do not move on unless this is mastered. What you're teaching them, first of all, here is how to work, how to concentrate on something. That's the first part of this. And then obviously the secondary is we're working on math skills. But this concentration, timing, writing it, you're building up that memory, that focus. That's what you're doing here. Now, after counting to 100, forwards and backwards, picking up speed, you're gonna show them how 2 twos is 4. 2 3 twos is 6, right? If they've been skip counting, this is easy. 4 twos is 8, and 5 twos is 10. Now you're showing them their times tables, and they're gonna work on this. Maybe the first day is just 3 facts if they're really slow, or it could be 5 multiplication facts. But don't teach 2 times 2 is 4. 2 times 3 is 6. No. Rather, the other way to do it, the better way is 3 times 2 is 6. Same thing when you're moving on to threes. Instead of doing 3 times 6, you're going to be teaching 6 times 3, 7 times 3, 8 times 3, etc. And you're just going to keep moving on as you go through the tables. Now, after they've completely mastered the counting by twos and times by 2, you can move on to counting by threes. Count by threes. And they're going to count by threes. Maybe you don't have to go all the way to 100. Maybe go up to 36, because you know where I'm going with this, with the times table. So they can skip count by threes to 36. And then after they've mastered counting forwards and backwards, counting by 3, then you can move on to, okay, how much is 3 twos? Or how much is 3 threes? 9, right? How much are 4 threes? So again, I'm not doing 3 times 4. It's 4 times 3. It's 5 times 3, 6 times 3. And so you go on that way. After they've mastered that, guess what you're gonna do? Or what they're gonna do? Skip counting by 4. And every day that they do this, you sit there with them and record their times with them, make sure that they're doing it correctly. Eventually you will wean them off of your assistance, but right now you have to be there. It's, independent homeschooling, self-teaching, it doesn't start out that way. That's the goal. But you got to set the foundation first. So you do have to be involved for this. So after they have skip counted by 4 and they've memorized their 4 times tables this way, then guess what? You're going to work on the 5. Skip counting by 5s. This one's really easy. They can skip count to 100, forwards and backwards. Then, yes, it's going to be 5 times 2. How much is 5 2 times? How much is 5 5 times? At this point now, you could say, how much is 6 divided by 2? 3 groups. Or how much is 8 divided by 2? That's 4 groups. So then you're teaching division, then they can learn their division facts that way, and then you're going to go back to the threes, skip counting by 3s and doing their 3s multiplication. Now you could say, okay, how much is 9 divided by 3? How many groups is that? 3, right? So now you can teach division. Now at this point, after the 5s, try and wean them off and see if they can do school on their own. Counting by 6, learning their 6 times tables this way, learning their division this way. Now I do want to make a note here that Ella talks about in the book. If you have an older child, it's harder for an older child to learn their multiplication tables. So the only thing different is right after the skip counting, you would just move on to division right after. So you would do the skip counting by 2 and then move right into the 10 divided by 5. How many groups is that, right? That's just her recommendation. You can play around with it. I'm just giving you her suggestions. So that is a great way to, if they're really having a hard time, to work on, because maybe they don't have the concentration yet, they don't have the work habit yet, to just be able to sit there and drill flashcards on their own. This is how you develop it from the very beginning, is an abacus and just skip counting and learning multiplication and division this way. So that's suggestion tactic number 1 to deal with computational. And of course, another is just flashcards. If they can't do flashcards, drill them every day. And again, I have my video down below that explains it step by step. You want them to go through the whole stack. You know, parents ask me how long should they do them for. It's not a set time limit. They need to go through the whole stack, put them in a right pile, wrong pile. And then when they're done, take that wrong pile and do it again. Right pile, wrong pile. Then take that wrong pile and do it again. That constant repetition is what's going to get it from short-term memory to long-term memory. Now, something else for computational, and I've been talking about this a lot, are those facts practice drills that are recommended with Saxon Math. So I believe it stops after 8-7, but prior to that, before every lesson, there's a space that has what practice drills they should do. Now it starts off with 5-4 with just maybe subtraction, addition, multiplication, some division, but you know, in 8-7, there's improper fractions and mixed numbers, as well as equations. And so being able to do this every single day, these same drills over and over again, it will, and again, these are timed. Again, we go back to that time principle. You will see, they will see themselves getting faster and faster and building on that fluency. So if they're already in a math book and they're doing okay with the math book, you don't really want to go back to memorizing all the math facts this way. Make sure you're doing those drills at least. I highly recommend them so that they're getting that refresher, that practice. And a little side note here, if you doubt that these simplistic methods can work, then I encourage you to go to my RC Course for Littles landing page and just read the testimonials, because in that course, and I'm really glad it's so well received. And even though I haven't even officially launched it yet, I guess it's just from word of mouth. A lot of people have been signing up and sending me great feedback how this is so helpful in just going step by step from the basics, no frills or whistles here. And it's things available for free in the public domain to get them caught up to speed. It doesn't have to be overly complicated. So I encourage you to read those testimonials so you can see how stripping a lot of it away, the noisy, the colors, the patterns, and just stripping it down to the neutrals and the basics can really be free. Now we've already covered careless errors, computational errors. Number 3 is conceptual errors. They're not really understanding the concepts when it comes to maybe they're reading their math lesson and being able to execute it. There's just a disconnect there. Now I would say, going into the basics again, is are they a strong reader? That's why RC doesn't officially start until they're a strong reader, because they're going to read 5-4, the math book, their lessons on their own, and complete their work, grade themselves. They need to read from the RC book list, and they need to write a daily writing assignment. And that's why I created my course in the first place, just to kind of fill that gap from the very beginning to that point, because trust me, a lot could go wrong during that point. It's very foundational. So if they're struggling, think about it. Are they really strong on those basics, on comprehension, their reading skills? Are they struggling with some dyslexia, with just reading in general. That's a big one. So you might have to go back and watch that video and really go back to the basics. Now, if it's not that, it's just having a hard time, you can try the method of the overnight student, where they read a little chunk of the lesson and they practice teaching it out loud to somebody else. Because we retain, and we just do, we retain more of what we teach than just what we hear or read. So them pretending to teach it to somebody else could be really helpful. Just kind of reading it out loud to themselves, that could be really helpful. Going back to the last place where it was easy and then going slow from there. Half a lesson a day. If there is a disconnect, if there's a stumbling block, they need to park it there, because it's only going to get more difficult. It's just going to build on itself. And if this is one of those situations where they're frustrated, you're frustrated, and you're ready to throw in the towel and send them back to public school or something like that, then I would say this is the time for this intervention that I'm about to mention, and that is Nicole the Math Lady. So Nicole the Math Lady, it's a website. You can pay $100 a month for multiple kids, for multiple books, or just for one textbook. It's a little cheaper. And they watch video lessons of her explaining it very well as some practice problems that they work through. And it doesn't really matter the edition that you have. When it comes to grading, she uses 3rd edition, but just if they're doing their own grading, it's fine. But just to see the lessons, the concepts being worked out, that can really make a big difference, and it doesn't involve you. So we're trying to always make it so that we're not putting more demands on the parent. This is something that they could do independently, watch the video lessons, and it could be really helpful. Again, it's not the standard practice of RC. And I'm just recommending it here in this video as sort of a last resort, not just the standard, let them struggle with it themselves, right? Like Dr. Librand says, you want them to have the math get through to them and not just get them through math. And that's a lot of times what parents are trying to do. We just want to get them through math. No, try to let the math get through them and them work it out. Because again, right, we're talking about increasingly challenges is the other side of the work habit. So if you want them to be really great and productive adults, this is part of it. It starts with the academics at home as well. It's two sides of the same coin. And that's kind of where I want to end off this video too. Make sure that you're giving them chores to do at home. Now, I have a free 5-day challenge where I take you step by step how I organize everything, how I run my home like a small franchise versus small business. Because small business mentality, usually it's one person trying to do it all and wear multiple hats, and that has a high burnout rate. Well, again, I like to take these other principles and apply them to homeschooling. If mom is doing everything, that is a no-win situation. You're getting burnt out, and the kids are not developing those work habits to help them with their study habits. So in my 5-day challenge, link is down below, I take you step by step how to delegate. And one of the big keys is delegating in a way that the person with the lowest skill level possible is handling every single task. Because this can happen, especially with large families, right? You sort of train your first employees, your older children, to do laundry or this or that task, and then the younger ones come in and then they're not really doing much. They're kind of getting a little spoiled, a little lazy, right? The baby of the family, sometimes this is the case because the older ones are doing everything. So what needs to happen is that the older kids need to pass on those lower skill level jobs to the younger kids, so that frees them up for the more challenging academic tasks that they're doing, or the more challenging things in the home, the things that only they can do. They can do the cooking, but a 5-year-old can't do the cooking. So things like that, be mindful of that. When you're assigning chores, everybody has to help out here. And don't feel bad about giving your 4, 5, 6-year-old chores, because again, how can you expect them to sit and concentrate and focus on academic work if they have not even been trained to do that kind of work and hold that focus as a young child? It's necessary. So that's my free 5-day challenge down below. You can check that out and just get organized, get intentional, and then take massive action. Now, at this point of the video, you've learned what are the 3 common just challenges when it comes to arithmetic. You've also learned the 3 common factors that could be at play when it comes to a child who is behind, and 3 strategies on how to get them up to speed quickly but at their own pace in a very efficient way. And but not least, another free gift for you if you are interested in the Robinson curriculum, a fantastic way of homeschooling that focuses on the basics and study habits. I have a free 13-part video course for you. I will leave the link down below. You can access it today. All right, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in another video. Bye.